Very good evening. Online students, am I audible? चलो ठीक है. So today we'll start with unit 2.3, marriage. Okay. These three remaining subunits, that is 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, very factual. देखा जाए तो questions directly they have stopped asking, means there are specific aspects of this marriage, family and kinship which they have started to ask. Now what they have tried to do is they have started linking maybe something related to one aspect to other aspect. So marriage may one of the most explored areas is live in relationship. That's more important. Then family may disintegration of joint family. Okay, and kinship not much important right now because in the present anthropological studies also kinship is not a very much favorite topic of the anthropologists. So that's why they are not asking these kind of questions. But this year they try to link it. So they asked a question related to how there is a conflict between rules of residence and rules of descent, specifically with respect to matrilineal systems. Okay, so this kind of question they have started asking. So fortunately, unfortunately, that makes it compulsory to these units also to be read. And here, whenever you read these kind of units, specifically the handouts, please pay attention to each and every line. Okay, it should not be that key, but there's word the content is matrilineal pata ho gaya and that's it. You should be aware with the content because directly the questions are not supposed to be asked. The questions might be related to, means might be asking you to relate some aspect of kinship with some aspect of family or maybe some aspect of marriage. Okay, and that's why it's like I'll be covering. अभी तक जितने भी क्वेश्चन पूछे गए हैं, I'll be trying to cover each and every one of them by this in the lectures itself. But you never know next time कौन सा नया क्वेश्चन आने वाला है. So that's why I require all of you guys to go through the handouts and just make sure that you read each and every line very carefully. And it's not that कि जो नए क्वेश्चन आ रहे हैं you require new content for it. It's all that you should be aware enough that you should be able to use whatever you have read to answer whatever questions are being asked in the exam. आपको हर क्वेश्चन के लिए नए कंटेंट की जरूरत नहीं है. So always be cautious about this. Okay, because अगर आप इस mindset से जाओगे that you require new content for every question, in that case anthropology in itself will become unending. Or for that case any subject will become unending. So you have to limit yourself on the content. Make sure that you read limited content multiple times and try to utilize whatever you know in the best possible manner in the exam. After all, most of you are engineers, or maybe we had that experience of reading one night before the exam, and exam में पूछा कुछ भी जाए, whatever is being asked, we write whatever we know. Okay, this attitude is must for survival in UPSC, because if you go on content collection, in such case your syllabus you will never feel confident. You will never feel that you are you have enough content to appear for UPSC exam, because content is endless. Even like for example in GS, each and every topic that we are reading as a sub topic for say GS paper 1, paper 2. So for example IR, for example international relations. So there is an entire optional subject related to it. PSIR, one part of it which is international relationship. So if you want to explore it, you can explore it to that length also, or you can be precise enough. So you have to make sure that whatever you read, you have a good command over it, and you can manipulate that content in whatever way the question is asking it. You don't need to have more content. You should be clear with the content. Okay. So let's begin with this marriage. So before we begin the theoretical aspects, we need to see some examples that I want to discuss. First is a case of a community, RMB, a Brazilian community. Okay, a Brazilian community. So here it is here you find that different or multiple types of marital unions are present. I'm not using the word marriage. Different types of marital union, that is husband and wife, or say male and female living together to reproduce. So one is that what is called as the legal marital union. Okay, so here in this legal marital union, it's what is called as a civil marriage, that is legalized by certain law. And second is a marital union that is solemnized by common law. It's not legal, but a common law that is acceptable to all the members of this community. Okay, and there will be one that will be marital union that will be by both, that is legal plus customary law. That is here you can see that a person can at max have two wives. One that is by the legal, means if he marries one by legal, so in that case that is the one, because Brazilian law is like monogamous, only one woman or one partner at a time. So that is the legal. Then common law does not mention any kind of restrictions of a number of women. So he can have one, two, any number of wives basically on the basis of common law. So here in this situation, you can understand that the idea of marriage is different in this community than what we generally perceive about marriage. Okay, that is husband wife living together and all that stuff. Here the marital union can be of by two ways, maybe one by legalized form recognized by the law, and वहाँ पे divorce has to be done by legal ways on paper and doing lawyers and courts and all that stuff. And second is the customary law, that is they have their own customary law. For example, India also we have like a marriage that is first registered or recognized customarily. So आप मंडप में basically you take 7 vows, 7 फेरे लेते हो, and then you get it registered in the local government office. Okay, or maybe maybe in elections or some documents that you will be making, you will register yourself as a married person and will be mentioning the name of your spouse for several benefits. Maybe you might be taking some insurance. So here that you have already, means you have solemnized your marriage by common law, some your customary laws. At the same time, you have got that marriage registered through some legal means as well. But here these two are different. Legal is different, common law is different. Then there is a community, Muso in China. Here the condition is that the typical adult woman always remains at home. Okay. So in this scenario, you will find there is no permanent marital union in this community. No permanent marital union. So how does this community sustain itself? So here in this case, the community is able to sustain itself by a mechanism of what is called as a visiting male intimate partner. So here, we might call it as a paid sex or prostitution, but it's not like that. I mean, somebody as an outsider might call it as paid sex or prostitution, but it's not like this, because the male usually visits the female only for intimate relationship, and he will come back. He will not stay at that place, or male and female do not stay together and make what we call as a typical family. Nothing like that. So visiting male partner is there. Okay. And idea of fatherhood. So no concept of biological fatherhood. Okay, now the question comes, is it compulsory that the same person should visit? No, it's completely autonomous. That is, the woman is completely free to decide whom she wants to mate with, and the man also has that autonomy. That is, the man can also decide with whom he wants to have an intimate relationship. Okay, so he will go, and but as it's like any person can come up with money and can basically have the intimate relationship. It's not completely a paid sex. It's like the woman has autonomy. She decides with whom she wants to be intimate, not with any random person with some pennies in his hand. No, it's not like this. So biological fatherhood concept is not there, and at the same time, a man and a woman can have multiple sexual partners. So here you can understand the kind of family they would be having. It will definitely be a woman-dominated family, with male might be having some kind of authority, but this male would be doing the same kind of task that other males are doing. So they will come back to their matrilineal homes, and they will also be, these males will also be some kind of visiting male sexual partners to some other women in other groups. Are you getting this idea? So here the family is not of that type, husband wife living together having children, but a woman having children whose fatherhood is not known, or say not relevant at all in this community. Because they are not at all concerned about it, and women living with her children, you can say. So when the other children see the siblings or children grow up, so other women or other girls will be doing the same kind of job or same kind of life, and the males will also be doing the same kind of life or living the same kind of life. But they will be living in their matrilineal home, because they are very much clear about who their mother is rather than who their father is. Or say fatherhood is not that important or relevant in that community. Okay. Now one very specific case of Noors, studied by Ivan Spichard. So this Noors, they have different kind of, you can say, marital unions. In first case, you will see same-sex marital union or same-sex marriage. What is this same-sex marriage? Here it usually happens when a man does not have a male heir or male successor. In that case, the daughter might act as a son. How will he act as a son? How will she act as a son? She will marry another woman, acting as a husband of that woman. Okay, if the male do not have any son, in that case, daughter will be acting as a son. She will be marrying another woman, and this daughter, so say if the name of the daughter is D, so this D will be acting as a husband to another woman, and they are called as pater. Okay, it's because of some English contact they have started using such kind of words, pater. Now pater, what she will do with respect to the wife she has, she will take the help of a third party in order to impregnate this woman. So some friend of the pater will be having an intimate relationship with the woman, and this woman will be impregnated by a third party. But the child that this woman bears will be considered as a child of this daughter who's acting as a husband and the woman. Are you able to understand this? Yes or no? Okay, so this is the case in that society, that is same-sex marriage is there, but some third party will come and impregnate the woman. After the birth of the child, the father will be the woman who has given birth to the child, and the woman who is acting as a husband, not the third party. Third party role is for that moment just to impregnate the woman, nothing more than that. So this is the same-sex marriage that happens there. Second, there is a kind of ghost marriage that also happens there. Here it is believed that if a man dies childless, suppose if there is a young man, maybe 20s, and he dies childless, it is believed that his spirit or soul will be wandering and will become restless and might bring some kind of chaos in the society, or might bring some kind of bad luck for the society. So in such a case, when such kind of phenomena happens, that if a man dies childless or unmarried, in such a case, what will happen is that a woman will be married to the ghost of this man. Okay, it's believed that woman will be married to that particular person. That's it. And this woman will be impregnated by a third party. But the child of that woman will be considered to be an official child of that woman and the dead man. Because it is necessary for every man to have a child. And if a man dies childless, in that case, it is believed that spirits will be causing some kind of disturbance. So in this case, or if the man dies unmarried, so in this case, the woman will be married to a ghost. And ghost of the man, and she will be impregnated. And the child that she bears will be considered to be a biological, or considered to be an official legal child of that woman and the dead man. Okay. In the same way, if after marriage the man dies and he already has some kind of son or daughter, in that case the widow will be married to the brother of the dead man. This practice is called as levirate. Levirate. So if a man dies and the woman is having children, in that case the widow will be married to the brother of dead man. Okay. This practice is called as levirate. Yeah. Man is unmarried. हाँ. or if he is unmarried. Hey, so in that case there will be marriage. If the woman will be marrying a ghost. Yeah, this is something we do. अगर मांगलिक हो जाए लड़का लड़की, if there is anybody who is manglik, what do? We marry that girl with a tree, or maybe some plants, or sometimes some other communities they are married to a dog, so that the first husband gets the curse of dying, so that dog, that tree, or whatever it will fade away, or might be means dog की death हो जाएगी. ठीक है, पहला husband dog था, and the second marriage will be done to a human. It's a very similar kind of practice. Okay, ghost marriage they are very common in India also. अब तो वैसे भी ओडिशा से हो, यहाँ पे तो बहुत ज़्यादा कॉमन होगा. नहीं, I'm not specifically pointing. It's not about any community. It's not something a practice that you can understand as a degraded or some kind of offensively. मैं इस तरीके से कहीं से नहीं बोलूँगा that these are some kind of bad practices, but it's all about the beliefs. How do they believe and what do they consider as normal? So they have some kind of functionalities. Means these kind of practices might be relevant in their context if you see them from their perspective कि उनके culture में कितना relevance है. But this is something not to be very much surprised. I'm just telling you that these kind of practices are very common even in urban India also. The manglik wala case is very common. Okay, in all those in majority of the high caste communities in India, if the girl turns out to be a manglik, the first marriage will officially be done to a plant for sure. ये करते हैं, आज भी करते हैं. Yeah. वो हम लोग kinship पे पढ़ेंगे तो male is always like this and female is this. This refers to marriage. ठीक है. This refers to children. Okay. Their belief is that in case of say unmarried, childless, if the man dies childless, so in that case it is believed that the woman will be moving outside the house, and if she moves outside the house, in such a scenario, what will be done? She might take away the property of that man away from that house. In order to prevent it, it's necessary that that she remains in the house. She might be impregnated by a third party. The children will be officially recognized by that as the son of that particular dead man. जो उसकी property को inherit करेंगे. In the same case of unmarried man, no brother can actually claim his right on the property of other brother who is now dead. So in order to make sure that this property remains in the family, nobody claims an authority over it, what they do? They might get this brother, dead brother, married to a woman in which the younger brother might be impregnating the married woman. Okay, so now the married woman has children who are officially recognized as the children of the dead man. So ultimately the family remains united and the property of the family remains in the family. Okay. नहीं, घोस्ट एग्जिस्ट नहीं, क्या बोला घोस्ट एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता? नहीं, आप भगवान में मानते हो तो देख सकते हो क्या? तो उनके भी होंगे कुछ. घोस्ट एग्जिस्ट करता है नहीं करता है, इट्स ऑल अबाउट व्हाट यू बिलीव इन. ऐसे तो इन पर्सन में तो भगवान भी नहीं है. इट्स ऑल अबाउट योर बिलीफ, इट्स अबाउट देयर बिलीफ, इट्स अबाउट योर बिलीफ. अब इफ आई आस्क यू इस रूम में कितने लोग हैं? अब बताओ. तो यू माइट बी काउंटिंग द फेसेस, बट आई से बहुत ज्यादा, इससे कहीं ज्यादा. जो आपके बगल में भी कोई खाली चेयर पे बैठा भी हो सकता है, बिकॉज़ इट्स ऑल अबाउट आई बिलीव इन घोस्ट, यू डोंट. It's something, it's all about belief. Okay, they have their belief and it's not necessary that they will always express their belief the same way you do. You believe in God, you don't see that God, but you have personified the God in some way or the other. ठीक है, आपने अब देखिए कि हर कोई अगर किसी चीज में बिलीव करे तो उसका पर्सोनिफिकेशन आप ही की तरह करे. It's not necessary. So they might believe in it, yet they might not believe in the personified form. ठीक है. तो फॉर एग्जांपल श्राद्ध में हम लोग क्रोज को अपने एंसेस्टर्स बोलते हैं, तब उसका क्या भरोसा है कि दादाजी आए थे कि उसके दादाजी आए थे? We believe. It's all about the beliefs. हाँ जी. Levirate? No. Levirate also, the official father will always be the dead man, so that she does not move out of the house. Specifically in Newar's, it's like they do not want the woman to move out of the house, because if she moves out, she will take away the entire property that belongs to that man. The house loses its right. In order to prevent it, they will be making sure that she, along with her children, remains as a member of the house, and that's why she will be marrying the brother of the dead man. Yes, you can say that. नहीं, वो in such kind of society, multiple partners are there. Yes. Definitely, brother won't be waiting for his brother to die so that he can marry the widow. So definitely उसकी भी बहुत सारी marriages होंगी. Polygamy and polyandry are allowed there. ऐसा थोड़ी ना प्लान करके बैठा होगा कि मैं तभी शादी करूंगा मेरे भाई की डेथ हो जाएगी, और किससे करूंगा कि उसकी जो विडो वाइफ है उससे करूंगा. ऐसा थोड़ा ना होगा. क्लियर है ये? ओके. अरे आप टेंशन मत लो, वहां पे आपके बगल में कोई नहीं बैठा. So next is the case of Nayars, a community of Kerala, cited by Kathleen Gao. Don't get confused between these Nayars and this Nayars. Okay, there are two different communities. These Nayars are very high caste community, but these Nayars, they are low caste communities in Kerala. बोलिए. Which type of practice? क्या घोस्ट वाली? हाँ, तो मैं अपने मन से थोड़ा बता रहा हूँ. इवान पिचार ने सिटी की है भाई, ऐसे थोड़ा कि कल रात में मेरे को सपना आया कि घोस्ट मैरिज करानी है आज क्लास में जाके. Kathleen Gao. So here in this is a matrilineal community. Actually, Kathleen Gao was a visitor anthropologist to India somewhere in mid 20th century, and when she visited India, very close to independence of India, so what actually happened? She got the chance to conduct village studies in South India. Okay, study caste village in South India. Here, what she observed in Kerala, that there is a community called as Nayar, whose men they used to serve as warriors. Actually, it's not an effective field work, but rather a case study that is derived from the historical records. उन्होंने live study नहीं किया. This kind of practice used to happen in 16th and 17th century. So here this Nair men, they were warriors and they used to remain most of the time outside their villages serving for the king. And for these warriors, it was a kind of disgrace to die at one's place. Okay, as long as they can serve, as long as they are physically fit, they would love to serve in the army. They would love to die in the battlefield. So that's why most of the time they were not in their own village or native village. They used to be in the army, serving the king or fighting the wars. So whenever they used to get leave, they used to come to their own native village. And here in this community, what Kathleen Gao observed, that a woman should be married as soon as she achieves puberty, or just before the age of puberty. Because if she attains puberty and not married, then in such a case, the entire family might be outcasted. So this is the case that woman should be married as soon as she reaches the age of puberty. Now in Nairs, there is a matrilineal community. Okay, and this matrilineal lineages are called as an angar. Okay, this is the term they use for their particular lineage, an angar. And each matrilineal lineage is headed by a male who is the eldest matrilineal male, means the eldest brother, eldest matrilineal male called as Karnavan. Okay, now it's his responsibility to make sure that any girl who reaches the age of puberty should be married, else he might face some kind of sanctions from the society. Now, as soon as the girl reaches the age of puberty, she will undergo her first marriage or primary marriage. This primary marriage is called as Thali Ketu Kalyanam. Kalyanam is the word that is common in South India for marriage. Okay, Thali is the term that is used for Mangal Sutra. Okay, so Thali Ketu Kalyanam is the primary name of the primary marriage that they do. Here in this case, what they do is that this marriage, primary marriage, the functions they go for 5 days, and in this 5 days, what you can say that the clothes of the bride and the groom, they are tied. आपने देखा होगा जब 7 फेरे लेने होते हैं, so then the clothes are tied. ठीक है, so that tying of the cloth, that is called as asundar. Okay, that loin cloth, the dhoti, that is tied to the. So here that marks tying the bond between husband and wife. Now after the marriage, for 3 days, only for 3 days, the husband and wife live together. And for these 3 days, the husband has exclusive sexual right over the woman, only for 3 days. And after these 3 days, the asundar will be cut off. And that officially marks the end of the primary marriage. That is the 3 days. Okay, now this husband is free. Okay, and the wife also is free. Now, wife has no obligation towards the husband and vice versa. None. There is no obligation of husband towards the wife also. Okay, so next thing what will happen, what is called as secondary marriages. Here, the wife or woman returns to her matrilineal household, and here she can engage into what is called as secondary marriages. And these secondary marriages are nothing more than one night sexual relationship between a male and a female. Any person, any Nair can approach the Karnavan and can seek the permission for having a secondary marriage with the Nair woman. And this is related to kind of the reputation of the woman. The more the secondary marriages, more will be the reputation of the woman in that society. Okay, here also there is another community called as Nambudri Brahmins in the same region. Now this Nambudri Brahmins, they consider themselves to be the purest of all the Brahmins, purest of the pure community also. And that's why they do not want to spoil their or they do not want to pollute their blood, first thing. And also they are very influential or affluent in communities in that region. So what, there is a rule that Nambudri Brahmins, or there was a rule that Nambudri Brahmins, only the eldest son will be marrying. Only the eldest son among the Nambudri Brahmins will be married. अब इससे क्या होगा, that other sons or other brothers, they do not have the right to marry, and hence when they do not have the right to marry, they will not reproduce. In such case, the property division will be limited. If the eldest son marries, then all the property will go to the eldest son, and to the eldest son, and the property division will not be there. But there is some biological needs for the males also. How to counter it? So they are allowed to have or participate into these secondary marriages. So here the Nair community might also come, and also the Nambudri Brahmins might also approach the Karnavans to seek the permission for secondary marriages with the Nair women. Okay, and they can engage into a short-term sexual relationship with the Nair women. Now in these secondary marriages, the Karnavan will be given some kind of gifts, some kind of money or some kind of presents by these Nair men and the Nambudri men. Okay, in order to seek the permission, and that is the source of revenue for them. First thing. And due to these secondary marriages, there will be children which will be given birth by the Nair woman. Now who is going to be the father? So here in this community also there is no concept of father. Okay, no concept of biological fatherhood, but just to make sure that the child is legitimized. So in that case, one of the Nair man can come forward and bear the expense of delivery. Any one man will come forward and will bear the expense of the delivery of that woman. And that this practice automatically legitimizes the child in that community. Okay, legitimization is by any man who bears the expenses. If nobody comes to bear the expenses, then in such a case, the woman might be outcasted, woman might be the child might be declared illegitimate. बस इतना ही fatherhood है वहाँ. Okay, and the money that woman earns, or say the Karnapan gets to allow a particular man to have sexual relationship with his sister or a woman of her lineage, that will be used for taking care of the needs, or that's a source of revenue. Okay, so this is the entire Nair community, but actually the problem is that this is a very kind of very consensual picture that has been painted by the scholars who were not highlighting the conflict, but there are certain scholars who later on studied the same idea or same case study, and they suggested that they painted Namudri Brahmins as the culprit or the villains. जिन्होंने lower caste women, they have been reduced to prostitutes due to their practice, that they were not allowed to marry, and in order to satisfy their sexual desire, they basically made the lower caste women serve as prostitutes. Or they next case, how caste system actually subordinated women. Okay, it actually led to, so there was a study by Veena Das, she also mentions, and Uma Chakrabarti, she also mentions that how this caste system actually subordinated women and promoted patriarchy. Leela Dubey also quotes this idea, wherein she mentions how Namudri Brahmins, they have exploited the women of the lower caste, and in general how men of higher caste, they reduce or they challenge the manhood of men of lower caste. Okay, so Uma Chakrabarti, she also talks about one particular incident that she talks about. She was attending or seeing a protest against reservation, in which several women were standing against. Sorry, there was a protest regarding demanding the OBC reservation, and in which women were also participating. So Uma Chakrabarti goes to ask, why are you standing in this protest? What will you gain? Means you're not interested in government jobs and all that stuff. So the girl, she was kind of shocked by the reply of the girl. The girl says that we do not want unemployed husbands, and that's why we are standing here. So the protest was, the girls were protesting not to get reservation for themselves, but for the men of their community, so that they get government jobs. Okay, so this is Uma Chakrabarti will be talking about. We'll see when we'll be talking about caste and gender. So how caste actually, you can say, inculcates the gender roles, and we have studied a lot of that gender stratification in previous classes also. So caste plays a very important role in gendering our thoughts. Or caste is a very important factor for establishing patriarchy. Okay, so here in secondary marriages also, the Nair women, they get the right to spend one night relationship with several men, as many men as they like, and this is the major source of revenue. Namudri Brahmins also participate into these kind of secondary marriages. Okay, so these are different kinds of marital unions of different communities across the world. Now, why I have told you this before beginning with marriage? The reason is marriage, kinship, family. These were one of the favorite topics in the initial years of anthropology. And when we want to study an institution or a particular type of cultural phenomena, the first requirement of it is to be defined. आप किसी चीज को कब study कर सकते हो? When you have a clear cut definition of it. Only then you can say that okay, this aspect of the society has to be studied. But the biggest problem came in getting a universal definition of marriage. There is not a single definition that covers all these aspects or all the types of marital union that we have seen. And this is the first and foremost debate considered or related to the universality and definition of marriage. So we'll begin with universality and definition of marriage. So whether there is a single definition or any idea of marriage that is all inclusive, covers all the types of marriage, is there any? So we'll see different scholars have tried to give up or sum up marriage in different definitions, and we'll see what are the shortcomings or shortcomings of these kind of definitions. उसमें क्या-क्या exceptional cases हैं, and then we'll reach to a conclusion that what can be done to create a universal type of definition of marriage, or is it possible or is it impossible? We are just wasting our time. So first definition just like this, according to Westermark, marriage is a ritually recognized. Marriage is a ritually recognized union between a man and a woman, such that spouses live together, and they have mutually recognized sexual rights. Now tell me, is this definition comprehensive? So first is ritually recognized union. Many of the marital unions that we have seen is not ritually recognized. These are just one night relationships. Okay, so Nair exceptions. A man and a woman. There are polygynous, polyandrous, okay, marriages. And then spouses live together. Among Khasis and Garos, there is a concept of visiting husband. We have also studied a community Mayengi. Remember? So where the bachelor huts are their father and the son after 5 years starts living with the father. Remember that? So spouses do not, and Khasis and Garos also, they do not live together. Husband and wife do not live together. Okay, then mutually recognized sexual rights, or you can say that sexual monopoly. Is it there among Nairs? In fact, in the present time, अभी एक modern phenomena हो रहा है that is called as polyamory. You can just read about this very recent phenomena. One of the, you can say, the peak of modernity. You can say that polyamory. Now polyamory says that there is no law that says a man can love only one woman and vice versa. कि एक आदमी को जरूरी नहीं कि एक टाइम पे सिर्फ एक ही इंसान से प्यार हो सके. There can be multiple person whom you can love, and there is no problem in it. Who has actually written this that एक टाइम पे एक ही इंसान से प्यार हो सकता है? So they have accepted this fact, and they suggest that it's not necessary. So in that case, if a man can have that affection or love towards multiple women and vice versa, why to restrict the sexual access only to one person? So in the same way, man and woman can have multiple sexual partners, but the condition for it is that it should not be secret. It should be the husband and wife, since legally the societies are mandated to have only one husband and wife. Monogamous है वो. Polygamy is not allowed in such societies. In such case, the man and woman can have multiple sexual partners, but they should be loyal to each other. That means they should be transparent. That okay, I'm dating this woman, I'm dating that man. Husband and wife should be telling each other. And several couples in US, in Western countries, they have accepted this idea as natural. It is logical. They say, it's आप समझो कि there will be a group of people who hate structures, who hate externally imposed rules upon them. And this rules of monogamy, having one partner at a time, it's something that we do not know when it was created and who created it upon us, but we are following it, assuming it as a natural way of life. यही सही है. But they have challenged this structure, saying that ये structure किसने बनाया? I don't have the consent. And who says that a person can have only one love at a time? The person can have affectionate feeling for multiple persons. And when it is true, then who actually decided that the person can only have one sexual partner at a time? But since the law, we don't want to engage into illegal activity, or we do not still have the capacity to change the law, what we can do is we can have multiple partners, but we should be transparent. Okay, and that's why this is what is called as polyamory. One of the very recent ideas, and that's a very recent focus of discussions, that are we progressing or are we moving back? The question goes like this: कि क्या हम progress कर रहे हैं, or are we moving back to the state from where we have originated? Huh? Exactly. So this is मतलब हमारे masters में ये debate चल रही थी. So there are multiple opinions. I'm not asking your opinion. Somebody might be saying that it's a progress. So one of my friend and a colleague, he suggested that it's definitely progress, because what we did in the back was something we didn't have the option. We didn't have the rationality to analyze the pros and cons of it. We didn't choose it. Okay, it was not a well-defined, well-thought-out process that happened at that point of time. But right now, what we are doing is something that we have thought critically. We have analyzed the pros and cons of it, and maybe then we might have come up with this idea. But there is a minor flaw in this argument. The minor flaw in this argument is he is thinking from the point of evolutionists, that in the past or in the primitive societies, people do not have the capacity to reason out rationally. उसे modern societies में ऐसा है. How people do not engage into the critical debates कि ऐसा होना चाहिए, वैसा होना चाहिए. Okay, that's another aspect. But in this definition, you can see a lot of different types of marriages in the society. Different societies that we have seen are not covered by these definitions. So the question is, either this definition is wrong, or these societies do not have marriage at all. There can be two interpretations of this. Either this definition is wrong or incomplete, or the other societies which are exceptional, they do not have any practice of marriage. So if this first aspect is there, then it's okay. We'll look at some other definition. But if there is a second aspect, that means marriage is not a universal institution. Okay, if this definition is correct, then marriage is not a universal institution, not present in all the societies, but in few societies which satisfies this criteria. So universality is questioned. Okay, so let's assume that this definition has some kind of shortcomings or some kind of limitations, based on which let's see the other definition or the second definition. Yes, adultery is not a crime anymore, huh? Adultery is not a crime. Adultery तो वो तब आया ना जब cheat करने की बात है, means the other partner is not aware, and adultery will be called only the second partner is caught red-handed. कि उसके मोबाइल पे WhatsApp पे मैसेज आया और बीवी ने पढ़ लिया, तो बोले कि ऐसी इमोजी और कौन भेज रहा है मेरे अलावा, so then it's adultery. तो उसके अलावा वो तो यहाँ पे तो सीधा criteria ऐसा है कि you can have it, just be open about it. There is no harm in it. Next is the definition by Murdoch. Just write this definition, Murdoch. According to Murdoch, marriage is a universal institution. Marriage is a universal institution which involves residential cohabitation, economic cooperation, and exclusive sexual rights. Okay, these are the three criteria. Universal institution that involves residential cohabitation. Now you are finding this case, is this true for all? Residential cohabitation. You also might be marrying some girl or a boy who might be posted in some different cadre or a district. Okay, अब उस case में it's a very modern form of visiting husband or visiting wife. Maybe on weekends you get the time to meet, even if you are posted in the same state. So your husband or your wife might be posted in some different district that might be 100 kilometers or 100 kilometers के अंदर 100 or 150 kilometers के radius में same husband wife post नहीं हो सकते. So minimum 150 kilometers का तो gap होगा ही होगा, or 100 kilometers. I'm not exactly sure about the numbers. Okay, but there will be minimum इतने kilometers का gap, and that's very difficult to travel every day. Specifically, the kind of job that you will be doing, you cannot spend 6 hours daily on travel. Okay, so in that case, it's like कि hardly on some weekends and even rare. Even weekends में भी मिलना possible नहीं हो पाएगा. This is residential cohabitation will not be possible in your case also. Okay, and then we have seen certain traditional societies also wherein residential cohabitation is not there. For example, Khasis or Nayars. Then economic cooperation. Is there any kind of economic cooperation between Nayars? The child do not have any kind of biological father. Or say Musu, China. Is there any kind of economic cooperation there? No. Right. So there are several exceptions to these definition also. But there are certain marital unions which do not have residential cohabitation. There are certain marital unions they do not have any kind of economic cooperation. Again, the question comes: either the definition is incorrect or incomplete, or marriage is not a universal institution. So let's see the third one. That is by Seligman. There is no point dictating it. Seligman, the third definition, just like this: a union between a man and a woman, so that the children born to women, are recognized as legitimate offsprings of both the parents. Children born to the women are recognized as legitimate offspring of both the parents. So in case of, again, the best example exception is Nayars, and then the phrase of that definition, a man and a woman. Here in this case, polygyny Polyandry is not recognized as a marriage. Also, same-sex marriage is not recognized here. Okay. So somebody is asking the recent Gujarat girls case of sologamy. You must have heard about this sologamy. First thing, ऐसे example कहीं भी quote मत कर देना. Okay, this is any example related to marriage is not something that you should be quoting in the exam because we are studying marriage as a cultural institution. And when I'm saying that there is a social institution that is well established facts or well established behaviors. So is it a well established behavior? That is culture की सबसे बड़ी criteria. That is it's shared practice. Not somebody rising out of the blue and doing some kind of weird or anything like कि अपने से शादी कर लेंगे. So it's not a cultural practice, and that should never be quoted because when you are saying that it's a cultural practice, that means it is a shared way of life. So ये culture नहीं है, ये तो individually उसने कुछ भी कर लिया. That's it. Nothing more has to be discussed about it in terms of anthropology unless and until after following this girl's example, 10,000 girls of Gujarat or of the same community, they follow the same way of life. वो भी sologamy कर ले. So then it requires anthropological investigation that why this behavior has now taken up the value of a cultural practice. Till then, it's just an individual random behavior, not a cultural practice that requires any anthropological focus and should not ever be mentioned in anthropology exam. Never. Okay. So this Seligman's definition also has some kind of shortcomings. Now let's see the definition by Kathleen Gao, the one who studied the Nair communities. Kathleen Gao. So she says, that's right, marriage refers to relation established. Marriage refers to relation established between a woman and one or more other man, which provides that a child born to a woman under the circumstances, not prohibited by the rules, of relationship is accorded full birth status rights common to normal members of the society. Okay. So here she is saying that women can have relationship with one or more persons or man, and in such circumstances, if there is any child who is born and who is following these rules, should be given full birth or should be recognized as legitimate child of the community. The same rights that are available to the normal members should also be given to him. Okay. So here she tried to make this definition more comprehensive because only the Nayars was a great exception to almost all the types of definition. Now, but she failed to recognize same-sex marriage and also ghost marriage practices. No, she says woman and one or more man. Okay. So these two types of marriage are not recognized by Kathleen Gao also. The next definition, the last one, that is by a scholar named Stephen. He says just like this: marriage is socially legitimate sexual union, which begins with public pronouncement undertaken with the idea of permanence, assumed with more or less explicit marriage contract, which spells out reciprocal economic obligation, between spouses and future children. Okay. Now in this definition, Stephen tried to bring or include multiple types of marriage practices, like homosexual marriage also. So if there is a socially recognized or socially legitimate sexual union, then homosexual is also okay. It's not necessary that a man and woman should be married. If the society recognizes sexual union between men and women, women and women, there is no problem in it. But that should be socially legitimate. Society should give acceptance to it. Unless and until society does not give acceptance, that it cannot be taken as a form of marriage. It has to be well established practice only in order to be recognized as an institution. So includes homosexual aspects also. So began with public pronouncement. It can only be done with announcing the public, okay, that this is the person whom I am going to marry or will be a partner with me. Okay, and society gives a thumbs up to it. But the next part is with the undertaken with the idea of permanence. So then comes the exceptional case, that is permanence is not the case with several kinds of marriages. Okay, permanence is the problem. So the secondary marriages of 9 years or several other contractual marriages cases that happens in India or in several other well-developed countries. Where the marriage contract is done for say 1 year, 2 years, and such kind of cases, and it's very common practices that they will be. And in several tribal people also there is a marriage by probation. So just like you guys will go on probation. Okay, so probation का मतलब क्या होता है that your job is not permanent yet, and if the government likes your way of working, they might make it permanent, else they might kick you out. The same can be the case of marriage by probation. So in this case, usually in Indian society also, the boy used to goes to the house of the girl okay, in which he will be living with the girl as a husband and can have any kind of relationship with the means as just like husband and wife will be living, they used to live, they will be living like that, and they will judge their compatibility. And if the girl is happy, satisfied with that boy, and he's means feeling compatible, she's feeling compatible, then they might go to the next level of pronounce their relationship as marriage, or the boy might be expelled. So that is marriage by probation. So in such case, several relationships are created without the idea of permanence. Okay, there is no permanence in such kind of relationship. So इसका मतलब क्या है कि वहाँ पे marriage ही नहीं होगी. Okay, and reciprocal economic obligations. Several kind of unions are there. For example, among mayors, where there is nothing like economic obligation, or say Musos of China, there is no economic obligation. Okay. So now what to do? We have seen multiple definitions, and they fall short of explaining each and every type of marital union that exists in all the societies. So what does it say? Means या तो marriage universal नहीं है, क्योंकि there is no comprehensive definition. If marriage was universal institution, there should have been some kind of definition to explain it, isn't it? So we don't have it. So that's why I write the conclusion of this debate. Several anthropologists were not able to. Several anthropologists collectively were not able to find a universal definition of marriage. However, most anthropologists agree that majority of the human societies, in majority of human societies, most anthropologists agree that in majority of human societies, marriage involves following practices. First, culturally defined relation between persons of different families, that regulates sexual behaviors. Second, a set of rights the couple and their families obtain over each other, and their families obtain over each other. So what multiple anthropologists they said is that since we are not able to find out any universal definition, what we do is we should go with a working definition. Working definition means it's not universal, it's not comprehensive covering all the aspects of the marriage, but it will be covering majority of the marital unions. Means majority means there will be few exceptions definitely because we don't have a universal definition, but this definition will be the most exhaustive or most comprehensive of all. So rather than finding the universal, we should go with the working definition. So just write the working definition. Working definition of marriage: a culturally sanctioned union between two or more people, that establishes certain rights and obligations between the people, comma, between them and their children, comma, between them and their in-laws. Okay. So this is the working definition. Now we'll see the types of marriage. Universal characteristics are most of the anthropologists agree that these are the features. So it's not universal because अगर ऐसा कुछ होता तो we would have incorporated into a universal definition also. So the first marriage is monogamy. So we all know that monogamy क्या है? That is one man has a single wife at a time. You have to refer this at a time because a man in this case can have multiple wives but at different times. Okay. That is what is called as monogamy. So according to evolutionists, monogamy is the representation of civilization, one of the most evolved form of marriage. You have seen this. The most evolved form of marriage was monogamy. But this is not the case. It's a situation, or it's more dependent upon the economy and demography, and also the laws of a territory. ये progress से ज़्यादा इन सब practice पे depend करता है, whether there will be monogamy or polygamous marriages, depending upon economy and demography and the laws. So if the laws do not allow polygynous relationship, then in that case definitely monogamy is the norm or the trend or the shared cultural practice. Now there can also be case of economy. So if there is a concentration of wealth, and this wealth or very important resources is controlled by the male, in such a case polygynous will definitely be a normal thing, or polygynous will be seen there. So जहाँ पे concentration of wealth is high and this wealth is controlled by men exclusively, you will find the instances of polygynous marriages. Okay. And demography, actually the ratio of men versus or male versus female. Okay. So if there is high number of males or high number of females, in that case there is a high probability of polygynous marriages. But if male and female numbers are almost equivalent, so per capita men, per capita women will almost be 1:1. So it's better, or it will be a norm. But if the male numbers are very high compared to female, polyandry might be the result. Or if the female numbers are very high due to warfare, male mortality is high, or due to some other reasons, in that case polygynous might be the norm. But if male and female numbers are almost equivalent, say so 1:1 का ratio है, so in that case monogamy might be the norm there. So it is represented like this, monogamy. Now it is of there are other things also, like for example if their society has a very high bride price or dowry, so dowry बहुत ज़्यादा high है, so definitely if a father pays a very high dowry to the male, so he'll make sure that there is exclusive sexual right between male and female. If I'm paying say crores of money for my daughter, so it is just to make sure that availability of that person should be exclusive to my daughter. And the same is the case with bride price also. If the man is paying a high amount of bride price, बहुत difficult है कि multiple women को afford कर पाना at that point of time. If the bride price is very high, not everybody will be able to afford multiple sexual partners or multiple wives. So in such scenarios also, monogamy will be the norm. So monogamy can be of two types. One is called as serial monogamy. Serial monogamy means a person can have multiple wives, but at different points of time. For example, Kabir Bedi. You must have heard about that person, Kabir Bedi. नाम नहीं सुना क्या आप लोगों ने? क्या आमिर खान ही ले लो. So serial monogamy, he's going to, as per the rumors or Bollywood gossips, he's going to have a third wife, but at a time he only had one wife. Okay, pehle and then Kiran Rao and then the third one, God knows. So this is serial monogamy. But there is a case of non-serial monogamy in societies where remarriage is not possible or not allowed. The person can have only one partner throughout his or her life, irrespective of whether there is divorce or say death or whatever happens. Remarriage is not allowed. So that is non-serial monogamy. For entire lifetime there will only be one partner. Second is polygamy. This is of two types: polygyny and polyandry. So polygyny means a man having multiple wives at same time. This is very important. At the same time, he should have multiple wives. And polyandry, women having multiple husbands at the same time. Okay. So let's see polygyny ka case. In polygyny, you will see that in a society that practices polygyny, this is how you can represent polygyny. Here the polygyny can be of two types mainly. One which is called as sororal polygyny. That means the wives are sisters. So if the wives are sisters, then it is called as sororal polygyny. And if the wives are not sisters, then it is called as non-sororal polygyny. So for example, king of Bhutan, so he has three wives and all the three are sisters. They are real sisters. Okay, so that's a case of sororal polygyny. And there are several communities, or like Osama bin Laden had 18 wives and 54 children in total. So it was not a sororal polygyny. The 18 women were not sisters from different families. So if we see that the distribution of frequency of polygyny in the societies that allow it, not every person will be participating into polygyny. Only few. Means ऐसा नहीं है कि society में polygyny allowed है तो हर कोई polygynist है, हर इंसान की 4-5 wives है, ऐसा नहीं है. Right? There will be only few, and the few will be those people who are extraordinarily rich or who have extra control over the important resources that are required for survival. Okay, they will be the persons who will be having multiple sexual partners. Actually, they can afford it. That is the thing. Not everybody can afford having a polygynous relationship. Okay. Then in Europe also, it was found that government actually allowed polygynous relationship for certain minority community in 19th century only or 20th century only because of large immigration there and war refugees going settling in Europe. So this case, what was happening is since during war, male were dying, so majority of the immigrants who were migrating to Europe were women and children with few men. In such case, this would have created a lot of burden over the welfare state of that country. So in order to escape from that burden, Europe actually allowed the men from those minority community to have or to go for polygynous relationships or marriages. Okay, so the men who were rich, and who can afford to have multiple wives, they basically went for it. Or European government did it specifically to make sure that there is no extra burden on the welfare state, because children and women, they are a big responsibility for the state, and a lot they can be misused, they can be exploited, and if the children are not taken care, they might turn into gangsters. So that would have been a big burden on them. So इस वजह से उन्होंने minority community को allow किया. So you need to understand that how law was actually changed or transformed in order to accommodate a demand on it. Just like this. In mid 20th century, laws, 20th century European laws, specifically of England, was changed to accommodate immigrants traditionally follow or practice immigrants who traditionally practice polygyny. The real reason was growing concern that the destitute immigrant wives might overburden the welfare state. Okay. Now, another case is in societies where warfare is highly prevalent, then there will be high mortality rate of males, and there will be a demographic imbalance. That is less males compared to female, and hence polygyny due to demographic imbalance. And that is one of the most prominent reasons for allowing polygyny in Islam. That is, Islam was born in a place that was जहाँ पे बहुत frequent warfare or tribal warfare was happening, and this warfare led to high mortality of male. In such a case, in order to make sure that the children do not end up as destitutes or wives are not captured and dedicated to the position of prostitutes of women, in order to ensure a dignified life to the women, Islam promises or Islam allows polygynous marriages. Okay. Although this practice is now kind of a survival, you can say, that is contemporarily irrelevant, carried on due to the force of habit. Right. So demographic imbalance. So I'm not very much sure about which part of the Quran it says or some kind of hadith. So here it is written that if means not every man is allowed to have multiple wives. It is a general interpretation, that is misinterpretation of that idea. It is specifically written that if a man found any woman as destitute or who cannot satisfy her hunger or maybe some बहुत ज़्यादा मतलब बुरी condition में है, she is struggling, in that case, in order to support that woman, man can give her the status of a wife. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको शादी करनी है तो इससे भी कर लो, इससे भी कर लो, जिससे मर्जी कर लो. It's not something, a privilege that has been given. It's more like an obligation, a duty that every man has towards a destitute woman. In order to provide a respectable life to that woman, he can offer her the status of a wife, something like this. So, which was kind of misinterpreted, and sometimes due to some kind of malpractices, it was taken as if a right of a man to have multiple wives. Okay, so demographic imbalance might be there. Next is certain studies that was done in Africa. So, by a group of scholars, I'll dictate this discussion, by Philip and Janet Kibride. इसका नाम कितना सही है? So, this person actually, they visited Kenya and they interviewed several female who actually practiced polygamy. उन्होंने सोचा कि वहां से पता चलेगा कि female are not very happy about polygynous relationship, having one husband, multiple wives. But they were shocked to find that females are very happy with polygynous relationship. Moreover, they prefer polygyny over monogamous relationship. So then they asked, why polygamy? Why do you prefer polygamy? Because they say that the first advantage that we get is the family is large. And when the family is large, means a man having multiple wives, the family is large. So we have more political acumen there, or more political weight, because हमारी family बहुत बड़ी है. Okay. So moreover, we have more labors and more economic resources at disposal. Plus, we have a larger fighting group also. So हमारी authority है, we have power. Okay. So based on the influence that they talked about, and later on another community that was studied by Connie Anderson in South Africa, they also suggested that women prefer polygamy over monogamy because they say that in a monogamous relationship, the entire burden of the household falls on a single woman. ठीक है, कि घर भी संभालना है, बच्चों का भी ध्यान रखना है, everything has to be done by a single woman. But in a polygynous relationship, we get a lot of leisure time. Leisure time as if because the work is shared, and if I want to go out, there are a lot of other women who will take care of my child. So I get a lot of leisure time, and that's why I prefer polygynous over monogamous relationship. Clear है? Just like this. Actually, there is means not related to this. There is a very famous example of Maharashtra. एक गांव की I don't remember. There was a village near Satara. In that village, basically there was a very poor road connectivity and bus वगैरह से भी वहाँ पे पहुँचने में it used to take from district headquarters, it used to take around 3 hours. And for that, for access to market, there was no good market around the village. And for access to market for daily groceries and all that stuff, the women used to, there was a weekly market that was organized somewhere 12 to 13 kilometers away from the village, and women used to go to that place, and that used to take an entire day, maybe 12 13 kilometers by foot. They'll go, they'll come back with a lot of luggage, or sorry, a lot of groceries items. So एक हफ्ते में एक बार market लगता था. And then certain male, they basically जो वहाँ पे authority थे, they started protesting कि our women have to go so far away and they get tired and all that stuff. So please make sure that there is a market that is opened in the vicinity of the village. Women protested against it. उन्होंने बोला कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं होना चाहिए, market वहीं पे रहना चाहिए, road भी मत बनाओ. And when asked why are you protesting this, so they say that at least one day we get freedom from our mother-in-laws. When we get the time to visit that 12 kilometer दूर, we get a lot of time to chit chat, we get a lot of time for leisure. It's not a burden on us, but it's a kind of week off for us. And that's why we don't want कि market यहाँ पे बने, because if that market opens up in the vicinity, we will not get that freedom. जो हम लोग को at least one day a week मिल रही थी. Okay, just like this. People who practice polygamy think it has considerable advantage. People who practice polygamy think it has considerable advantage. In a study conducted by Philip and Janet Kibride in Kenya, female as well as male married people agreed that polygamy had certain economic and political advantages. Polygynous families tend to be large, and they provide a plenty of farm labor, and extra food that can be sold in the market. They also tend to be influential in their communities. ठीक है. Next point. A study by Connie Anderson. Study by Connie Anderson in South Africa. Connie Anderson in South Africa highlighted the fact that women choose to be married. Women choose to be married to a man with multiple wives. Yes, to a man with multiple wives because other wives could help with childcare and household work. Other wives could help with childcare and household work and allow more freedom to come and go, or for leisure time. Allow more freedom to come and go. Okay. Now, Ralph Linton, he gives one reason that is not that relevant, but it cannot be explained also. So he says that polygyny is a trend that we have, or a behavior that we have inherited from our ancestral primates, and it is also seen among several living non-human primates. That is, primates are the order of species to which we belong, order of living beings to which we belong, and there are a lot of primates other than human beings. That is, apes, monkeys, they all are primates. Okay, so it's Ralph Linton suggested that this is a trend that is followed among majority of the primates because of their urge to collect and to have more and more females. Means something that we have inherited being a part of primate order. Okay, just like this. Linton says that polygyny derives from a general male primate urge to collect females. So he highlights one thing, that he was asked the question, agar aisa hai, so why is it not universal? He says it's because of culture. There is an innate desire in every man to have multiple sexual partners. This is a tendency in every man, and it's the culture that makes every man subscribe to monogamy. If that cultural restrictions is removed, you will hardly find a man who is monogamous in nature. Okay, and he says that is the reason for adulteries. In a very light note, in this interview, he says that this behavior definitely is primate oriented, and you might find several women who might not desire, even if given freedom, they might not go for any kind of polygynous or say polyandrous relationship, or they will not love to have multiple sexual partners because that's a primate urge. That is how they're biologically designed. But male have that biological design to have multiple sexual partners, and this is something. It's not something that irrelevant. There is a scholar named Richard Dawkins. You must have heard about him. In his book, The Selfish Gene, he says that we are composed of that selfish gene only, and this selfish gene wants to. अब ये लिखना मत एग्जाम में, इतना डिटेल लिखने की जरूरत नहीं. I'm just telling you that just to open up your mind कि ऐसे भी आइडियाज हैं. मतलब एक तरीके से राल्फ लिंटन ने ये बोल दिया कि आदमी पे भरोसा नहीं करना चाहिए. ठीक है. And there is a मुहावरा also in हिंदी कि बंदर जितना भी बूढ़ा हो जाए बुलाटी मारना नहीं छोड़ता. So basically that is on the basis of Ralph Linton's idea perception of male, that male cannot be trusted. Okay, it's the culture that have made them to subscribe towards monogamy. It's not in reality who they are. And this is something Richard Dawkins also suggested, but he was not that gender biased. उसने मेल और फीमेल दोनों के लिए बात बोली. That there is selfish gene in us, and उस gene वो selfish क्यों है? Because that gene wants that it should be living. Now gene living का मतलब क्या है? That it should be, means after I die my genes will go away. It can only survive only and only if it gets that, if my genes are surviving in the next generation, only then my genes can survive, isn't it? So that genes always want to survive, and that's why they will kind of create an urge in humans to reproduce. So that selfish gene is responsible. So in that case, he says that there is a man who is very loyal to his wife, subscribed to a single woman, complete loyal, एकदम पागल उसके प्यार में, and then there is a man who is a cheater, has multiple sexual partners, multiple wives, and this man suppose meets with an accident. Sorry, मतलब ये बोले कि आदमी अच्छा है, बहुत अच्छा है, but basically who will be more successful despite being honest, good, loyal, सब अच्छे काम करेगा, कोई पाप नहीं कर रहा है, सब पुण्य वाले काम कर रहा है, but the chances of this man being reproductively successful is very less compared to this man who is a cheater. Okay, why? Because he has the capacity to pass on this gene to the child from all the sexual partners. So that means the genes of this man will have a greater chance of survival than this man who is a monogamous person, isn't it? So उसने बोला कि this selfish gene is what is responsible. Actually, Richard Dawkins is known to be one of the greatest atheist surviving, means one of the greatest atheist intellectual scholar at this point of time. So I might have talked about this person when I would have talked about religion, atheism, and all that stuff, secularization में. अरे कैसे बात कर रहे हो यार? That वो कौन सा न्यूज़ चैनल है टर्की का, that Al Jazeera, yes. So उसके साथ उसका इंटरव्यू है regarding a particular book. I must have talked about this. I'm not remembering the host of that. So in which he has talked about God and all that, non-existence of God. So I'll share that link also अगर आप लोगों को समझ में आए तो देखना. But here he's saying that this selfish gene is what is responsible for our success. So he says, he also gives an example in this book. Suppose there is a man who has 2 apples and is going home, and he finds a hut with lot of fruits, lot of apples, so much that it can last him for days, for weeks. And this man is honest. He decides not to steal from somebody's house and goes with whatever he has to his house. And then there is a second man who also has the same amount of resources, but he also experiences the same hut in which is filled of fruits. But now what he does, he tries to collect as much as possible and takes it to his home. अब बोले कि दोनों एक ही जगह पे रहते थे, one, and at that place there was a famine, there was a shortage of food. So who is going to survive? The one who was honest and decided not to steal, or the one who was dishonest and decided to steal and accumulate more resources? डेफिनेटली द अदर वन। एंड बोला कि innately our genes are selfish। ये honesty और ये सब चीजें हमको कल्चरली सिखाई गई हैं, but it's our selfishness that is present in the gene that has made human beings survive, gave the human beings the capacity to survive in such a challenging environment। We were selfish, or it's our selfishness in our gene and a competition to survive, or a kind of determination to survive, that has actually made us one of the most superior species on earth। तभी हम इस competition में we have become the apex predators। Apex means the top, who have the capacity to kill anything or kill anyone when it comes to survival। That is a selfish gene। Okay, so it is on this idea of Ralph Linton only that it is a primate urge to collect females। Okay, next, एक बहुत interesting study है that says that society which has less protein in their food, they will be polygynous in nature। Society having less protein in their staple food will be polygynous in nature। How does this study talks about? So there was a scholar, John Whiting, who studied a community Hausa of Niger। ठीक है, तो वहां पे उन्होंने देखा what he saw that mother should not go to husband when she gives birth to a child who is suckling। That is when till the time child is given breastfeed, till that time the mother is expected not to come near to the husband। That is in a way she is expected not to have any kind of sexual relationship। Why? Because John Whiting finds that since there is a lack of protein in the food of this community, mother's milk is very important for the child to survive। And if the mother overburdens herself with multiple children, in such case the child's survival will be very difficult। So she has to make sure that she stays with the child and does not overburden herself with multiple children। अब इस case में what has happened due to lack of protein, the society has created a rule what is called as postpartum sex taboo। What is postpartum? Partum means delivery। So post delivery the woman is to refrain from sexual activity। That is postpartum sex taboo। And the reason for this postpartum sex taboo is lack of protein। So they have a belief that if a woman engages into sexual activity before the child turns out to be 1 or 1.5 years, in that case child might die, or child might basically become weak and will die। That's why every woman is supposed to have a postpartum sex taboo। The reason mainly is lack of protein in their staple diet, and that's why for child survival mother's milk is necessary। Clear है? अब since there is postpartum sex taboo, then there has to be some mechanism for satisfaction of male's biological need, and that mechanism is polygyny or satisfaction of male's biological needs। Clear है? Now another reason for this polygynous relationship in certain societies is a kind of virtual surplus of women over men। अब ये virtual surplus कैसे create होता है? That is the men they are married at a higher age। So suppose if there is a community in which men who are above 25 are supposed to marry, and then girls who are 12 can marry। तो अब उस केस में you will find there will be more number of girls available to marry compared to men। होगा कि नहीं होगा? Okay, even if the sex ratio is equivalent, the number of men above 25 will be relatively lesser, but the number of means we have a greater bandwidth। Suppose if age of marriage is 40 years, still 40 years somebody can think of marriage, so the age bracket available for marriages for men is 25 to 40, but for girls is so greater availability of women over men due to this age constraint on men and women। So this is what is called as the virtual surplus of female over male due to this age restriction। Men will be supposed to get married at a higher age, while female will be supposed to get married at a lower age। The next case, polygyny in societies where women do excess work। So if women contribution towards the labor is high, or the work that is done by the woman can provide a greater mobility in the hierarchy, then polygyny will be a preferred practice, a form of marriage। Remember big man Melanesia? Okay, since women are responsible for herding the pigs and also for horticultural activities, in that case they prefer to have multiple female partners so that they can accumulate a large number of wealth and they can rise in the hierarchy। So women doing excess work which might provide upward mobility, in that case the society will prefer polygyny। And last one, by behavioral ecologist, simple idea है that if men control the resources that is providing survival advantages, in that case women will prefer marriage with men with multiple wives also। That is a behavioral feature related to ecology। So that important resource which is necessary for survival, if it is concentrated and controlled by men, human, then every woman or majority of the women would try to marry somebody who will be having a greater control over those resources, and so that their survival and their children's survival is ascertained। Just like this, according to behavioral ecologists, the resource distribution in an environmental setting promotes polygynous marriages। In a foraging society, where men control hunting or fishing territories, are more likely to be polygynous। Here, women find it advantageous to marry such men. Women find it advantageous to marry such men, even if she is the second wife. Even if she is the second wife. Again, Richard Dawkins talks about this in Selfish Gene. वो बोले कि if a woman marries, or he actually busts the myth of, there is, you must have heard that phrase that we use of the usually the women who are more materialistic and are attracted more towards the persons or men who are rich as the gold diggers. So this term, he says that it is wrong, means it's not morally इनको judge मत करो. It's like they also have those selfish genes, and that's why they get attracted to those people who have the capacity to make sure that their genes will be surviving, will be expressed in the next generation. So it's nothing wrong to get attracted to a person who controls resources, because ultimately everybody is struggling for survival, even our genes. उसमें कुछ भी गलत नहीं है. Okay, if the ultimate aim is that of survival. In fact, he also gives an example that if there is a woman, I mean, most of our behavior, so she says that if there is, suppose if your house is attacked or by some kind of gangsters, and you two brothers are there, and your mother is also standing, and the gangster gives you a choice, or your mother a choice, that whom should I kill? Is it your children or you? The mother will always choose herself. Why? Richard Dawkins says it's not love, but it's a selfish gene, because mother knows that she can no more reproduce. Okay, in that case, if the children dies and she cannot reproduce, her genes will also vanish. But if she dies, she does not have the capacity to reproduce anyways. But if she dies and the children survive, her genes will still survive. It is the selfish gene that makes the mother to take this decision, not her altruistic love. Yeah? Father में doubt करना, इसलिए तो mother का example लिया. If father has the capacity to reproduce, हाँ, but father has the capacity to reproduce, हाँ, हाँ. नहीं, women and men are in two different conditions. Women cannot reproduce right now. Means after menopause, women cannot reproduce. But there is no restriction on male for that case. So men can reproduce even at the age of 70 or 80 or whatever, till the time a man is alive. So वो restriction तो male पे नहीं है. So definitely women has that restriction. And since, as I told you in the expendability theory, a man can impregnate multiple women, but a woman cannot give birth to as many child as a man. So man has greater capacity to make sure that the genes survive first. But woman definitely needs to choose somebody who can make sure that as she reproduces, he is able to provide the resources that are necessary for the child to survive. Men के केस में ऐसा नहीं है. Okay, men has the capacity to impregnate any number of women, but women cannot give birth to any number of child. She has some innate limitations. So in this case, she will always be choosing that person who has the capacity to make sure that her child survives, or in that case, her genes survives. So in the selfish gene, he talks about this idea कि जितने भी हमारे behaviors है ना, nothing is altruistic. It is, everything boils down to one thing, the survival of that gene. तो हम जो भी कर रहे हैं, but अब उसको किसी खाली टाइम में पढ़ना नहीं तो आपकी दुनिया से भरोसा उठ जाएगा. Okay, so this is the idea of polygyny. The next is polyandry. Simple idea. Wife has multiple husbands. अब definitely big man बताया तो था अभी वो that women do excess work वाले में. So here in this case, women having multiple husbands at the same time. So this polyandry can be of two types. Fraternal, that is husbands are brothers. Like sororal, here it is fraternal, husbands are brothers. And non-fraternal, okay. So there are two specific reasons, two major reasons for why polyandry does prevail in the society. Okay, the first reason is shortage of female due to infanticide. Shortage of female due to infanticide. So it has been found that, for example, among Todas and also Sinhalese of Sri Lanka, it was found that female infanticide, remember Marquesans also. So they have female infanticide due to which there was a shortage of female, and the solution that the society came up was polyandry. Okay, next case is related to availability of land. Since land availability, it might be limited. So in that case, the society might prefer polyandrous relationship in order to control the population and to prevent the division of land. So there was a study that was done in Tibet, that is by Melvin Goldstein. Among Tibetan Highlanders, and also by D.N. Majumdar among Khasas of Uttarakhand. So here in this, what they found that since they are living in a high altitude region, so वहाँ पे the availability of land is very limited. Specifically, the land available for agricultural purposes. In such a situation, I have already talked about if every man marries a woman and every man gives birth to individual child. So in such a case, the land will be divided. It will not become viable enough for a particular person to survive. In such case, what they do is they have a single woman, multiple husbands or brothers will have a single wife. So see, this is the case. For example, there are three brothers. They all marry a woman, and they all give birth to three children. So in the second generation, the land will get divided into 9 parts, and subsequently in the next generation, it get divided into 27 parts. So this is the problem. Now what they do is the three brothers can have a single wife, and this single wife, even if she gives birth to three sons, so again the land is again in the hands of, or in three parts, again these three brothers will be marrying a single woman, so land division is not possible there, or at least a viable amount of land that is necessary for survival will always remain. Okay, and in such societies you will find that how to manage excess female. So among Tibetan highlanders, Goldstein found that the female, they prefer spinsterhood by choice also, so they will go for, or they will choose spinsterhood. ठीक है, तो आप वहाँ पे monk और इस टाइप के केसेस बहुत ज़्यादा देखोगे, wherein female they join some kind of monasteries, or in such case they prefer being spinsterhood or following spinsterhood there. Okay, so these are the types of marriage. So we'll see certain rules related to marriage in the next class. That's it for today. Thank you so much.